Hi, everyone. I am Lynn Slosky, Executive Director for ANED, and thank you for bearing with us on that technical difficulty. Thank you so much for being with us today for this exciting webinar. We're glad to offer a series of webinars throughout the year with our treatment center partners who provide such wonderful support to us throughout the year to keep our services free and available to anyone who needs them. Today, we are in partnership with McCallum Place and specifically delighted to have a conversation with Amanda Schlitzer Tierney, who is a strength and conditioning coach at McCallum Place. So welcome, Amanda.
Hello.
Yeah, so we'll hear from Amanda in just a couple minutes. Of course, I will do my best to go through our intro slides as quickly as possible, but I do want to give thanks to McCallum Place Eating Disorder Centers for being such a gracious sponsor for today's event. And to just very briefly give some background on ANID. Some of you here today may be attending without knowing much about ANID. So we are a nonprofit organization that provides free peer support services to anyone struggling with any type of eating disorder. And we offer support groups, mentorship, and helpline services. And we are fueled by our peer supporters who actually volunteer their time, and volunteers experience a lot of great services themselves when they are with us. And so we're delighted to offer these services to a community that can really benefit from them. And then we have also coming up, this is something Amanda will be getting into. We'll talk a little bit more about following Amanda's presentation. But Anid is fortunate enough to have a few supporters who are throwing a fundraiser for Anid, and the topic is on joyful movement. And so Amanda will be getting into that, and then we'll get into discussion of that later on. And then just some housekeeping. Remember, at all times, you can type questions into the chat box or the question box throughout the presentation. We'll be monitoring those. We'll try to answer some of those in the chat if possible. Otherwise, we'll save them for the Q&A and the discussion. We'll have about 50 to 60 minutes of Amanda's presentation and then move into question and answers for the last 30 minutes. And then after this webinar, you'll receive 2 emails, one with the recording and the slides from Amanda's presentation, and then a second one with the evaluation. That is what will allow you to get a CE certificate if you are interested in that. So without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker today. And it's been, Amanda, I just want to say it's been such a pleasure working with you on this presentation and learning from you about this. And I'm really excited about what you have to share with our audience today. And thank you so much for coming to do that. So Amanda Schlitzer Tierney is an NSCA certified strength and conditioning specialist, holds her master's degree in sports and exercise psychology from Lock Haven University and bachelor's in psychology from Chestnut Hill College. Amanda is the former co-chair of the Association for Applied Sports Psychology, Eating Disorder Special Interest Group. And you've been working with athletes and non-athletes with eating disorders since 2006. You recently got your certification, your CEDS from IADEP, which is awesome. And I think I'll just let other people kind of breeze through this bio. Hopefully they read it when it was on our website. So why don't we just
important stuff.
why don't we just have you take it away with your presentation, Amanda?
All right, I will. So let me just share. Now, can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right, let me get started. I'm just gonna turn my video off while I give the presentation, and I'll pop my head back on once we open things up. All right. So I'm also just really excited to be here today. I feel really excited that ANID wanted to talk about joyful movement and invited me on. So this is a topic that I'm just really passionate about talking about and living each day. So just wanted to get started here with a little introductory to who I am and what my philosophy is. So, you know, as Lynn was saying, I'm a strength and conditioning coach, and I work at the Victory program for McCallum Place. And I've been working in the eating disorder treatment space for about 15 years and just absolutely love my role on the team and feel really excited that the eating disorder treatment field in general is really starting to recognize the importance of a fitness professional or strength and conditioning coach or athletic trainer, physical therapist, occupational therapist, the more non-traditional roles really as a part of the treatment team. So I consider myself an eating disorder informed and sensitive fitness professional. And I use that wording just because there's not a specific, I guess, designation for someone who is a fitness professional who works with eating disorders. But I think it's really important just to really be informed about what eating disorders are and really sensitive to the needs when discussing anything fitness, exercise, movement related. So I just wanted to use that term, and I think it's hopefully starting to catch on in the field. With that, you know, just a little bit about who I am not. I really don't take a focus on aesthetics or like trying to change your body from a fitness space. And I really don't approach sport and exercise from a place of like shame-based motivation. I really just enjoy sport and exercise and moving our bodies in the way that like we can celebrate, not to make people feel bad about themselves. I just really enjoy people and helping them, you know, celebrate their body and meeting their goals and just having fun with that. So with that, I take a health at every size approach and just really celebrating body diversity and diversity in all its forms to be able to treat like the client, the athlete, the patient as a whole person. And then here it says, I live and coach by the BPFA, which is Body Positive Fitness Alliance pillars. And I will get into detail about that and how I implement that into my work throughout the talk. All right, so diet culture, that's what the the topic of the talk is how to be an anecdote to that. And, you know, I'm sure that we are all pretty familiar with how diet culture sneaks its way into fitness and sports spaces. So I'm not going to go into you know, detail about like what that looks like or feels like in a fitness space, because I really want to keep this talk safe and solution focused. So I think that we can all agree that in general, diet culture can be pretty risk-filled, harmful. I see it daily that like they exacerbate eating disorders, or the messages around diet culture exacerbate eating disorders. Despite best efforts, I really don't think that diet culture is motivating or sustainable. It tends to be pretty limiting and narrowly focused. And I like to use the term unbalanced exercise, and we can talk a little bit more about that in the discussion. But I think that diet culture often leads to an individual engaging in unbalanced exercise patterns, and I think that that's often really different for each individual. So again, keeping things, you know, forward focused. I just want to kind of breeze through this side of it, but some of the examples of this would be, you know, working out and really having an over focus on like changing one's body, not listening to body cues, really driving the need to kind of disconnect from body and emotions during workouts, which often leads to like all or nothing patterns, or people feeling like they need to exercise in unsafe environments. That could potentially be like bad weather or time of day, or just like with unsafe, maybe toxic people. So I think that like diet culture often really pushes some of these messages, and a lot of times in the eating disorder world, you know, compensation for eating or feeling like you have to isolate yourself to do your workouts, and really getting in the way of like daily living and relationships. I see just from my setting. And with that, since I work in an eating disorder treatment setting, you know, a high level of support is really important when people are working toward the goal of joyful movement and trying to reintegrate fitness, and doing it in a way that is supported by the whole treatment team, and really working to like work through those damaging messages that diet culture often generates. So a big part of why I have a job is that our patients often navigate challenges during movement sessions, and things may pop up. So I really try and work with them to navigate those challenges, you know, in the moment. Some of the challenges that may pop up during a movement related session may be, you know, in my setting, would be like body image concerns, just since naturally when we're moving our bodies, we just have added body awareness. And sometimes this results in, you know, increased body checking or negative self-talk. So it's really important as an eating disorder and informed and sensitive fitness professional that I am a part of the treatment team, and that I'm able to kind of bring messages back to, or experiences back to the rest of the treatment team, and say kind of what comes up during our sessions in staffing or in you know, other collaborative ways of communicating, so that the other members of the treatment team are in the know, and we can give the patient or athlete the most support that they have. And I think that one thing that I just want to note, because I know that I work for the Victory program, which is, you know, for our athletes, but I also work with general eating disorder, the general eating disorder population. And I just think specific to athletes, a lot of people really struggle with anxiety regarding performance, or their like time needed to like gradually return to training and sport. So this is something that often comes up as a challenge in movement sessions. And a lot of that comes from messages around diet culture and sport culture in general, kind of praising perfectionistic or unrealistic expectations. So it's really my job to just like help people out while they're working through this, with lots of non-judgmental support. All right, again, I really want to keep this kind of forward focused. So what is joyful movement? I think the way that I like to think of it is joyful movement is fun. Joyful movement it's safe, enjoyable, not motivated by body manipulation or weight loss or trying to change how we look. It's balanced, it's recreational, it includes laughing and socialization. And if it's not with other people, it might be a way for someone to seek solitude or rejuvenation. I'm a mom of a 18-month-old and one on the way, and there are times that I love just hanging out and and going to the park with my husband and my dog and my son. But there are times where it's just really nice to be able to, take a few minutes to go for a walk just for some me time, or to go stretch in the other room just to kind of reflect on my day. So it can be used for socialization or a way to kind of seek solitude and rejuvenation. It often includes variety and flexibility. I always love when I'm working with patients and they say, wow, like that was so much fun, that didn't even feel like exercise. And I just always take that as a compliment, because I want people just to have fun, and I want it to be something where they're celebrating their body. Just some examples lately, because I know a lot has really changed, especially with movement, and a lot of people have really struggled in many ways during like the COVID-19 era, with like not being able to exercise or move their body in ways that they're used to, and that socialization piece might really have been halted just with all the shutdowns. But I did want to kind of give some examples of, like, in our setting, I am still in person and have been through the pandemic. And the nice thing about that is, when we are trying to integrate joyful movement, while we might not be able to go on like our recreational fitness outings where we take some adventures in nature, or maybe go for a hike or kayaking or stand-up paddleboarding, or going to like different classes that I kind of vet the instructors. It's been really fun. I have never done this until the pandemic started, but the Just Dance on YouTube has been a big hit, and just so fun to see people who typically wouldn't dance, mostly myself, just really get into dancing with other people, and just like enjoying that as a form of movement. So that's been one thing. In my setting, we have a full gym, and one of the things that I love doing with our patients is ball slams. And I have gotten a lot of our treatment team members to really utilize the ball slams with their patients, especially if like they come from like a difficult session, or they're just having a difficult time connecting with their body. They might just come into the gym for like literally 2 minutes and pick up this light weighted like sand ball and just like slam it into the ground. And it's always fun to hear the messaging and sometimes cursing that kind of comes out of that, against diet culture and against their eating disorder. So that's one thing that's been just kind of fun for me to experience, but also I think our patients and our staff as well. Also just like playing different sports together, getting creative and going outside, doing relay races, or for my people who are trying to kind of get back into a state of training, specifically my runners. Like an example would be, I might kind of slowly reintegrate running for someone and have them do a walk run, maybe walk a song, run a song, walk a song, run a song, or I'll ride my bike alongside of them. Lately, I've been driving my car behind them until I get a golf cart, but just with like being pregnant and it me not wanting to to put myself on a bike because it wouldn't be joyful at this point, but to really like just be with them in conversation and like help things remain present and fun. So that's just something that I enjoy doing for even people who are trying to, they have a goal of kind of getting back into a competition space, but wanting to really make sure that that joy is there, and maybe reconnecting with that passion that maybe they lost during their eating disorder. With that, I'm always like making different like I Spy games or like scavenger hunts for people. So I I try as much as I can to really just bring joy to any way that someone's moving their body. And I think I mentioned that I have a son. One thing, and I was going to put it in the presentation, but I didn't know if like the video would actually play. But the other day I was in the other room getting some work finished, and I came out, and my husband and my son, again, he's 18 months, were playing catch with a lemon, and I never saw my son catch anything before, and he was just having a ball, like truly like cracking up, laughing. My husband was laughing, and it was just really pure just to see the joy that came out of both of them. They didn't even know that I was there, and I caught it on video, and it was just I like to really reflect on that video when thinking about, well, what is joy in movement? And I really think that's what it is. All right, so as promised, I said I would share a little bit about Body Positive Fitness Alliance. And a little note about, I'm just going to say BPFA, is they're a nonprofit that has a network of body positive fitness professionals. And the cool thing is it's worldwide, and you can kind of go into their search engine and just see who would be a body positive trainer in a certain area. And I do want to note just for this talk that, McCallum Place and Anit are not associated with them as a business in any way. So everything I share is truly coming from a place of respect for their work, and not like a connection in some way. And just to clarify, I should say that the Body Positive Fitness Alliance is not an official like eating disorder informed and sensitive network of fitness providers. I would love to create that at some point in life. That's like one of my like bucket list goals, but I bring them up and into this presentation because I just feel like their values align with like debunking diet culture. And I originally found them and their pillars, 7 at the time, and they've added an 8th one in the intuitive eating workbook. And so I ended up I contacted their CEO at the time and was just like in awe of the pillars, and it really spoke to me. And I went to their conference or get together. There's probably about like 25 fitness professionals there a few years ago, and I spoke to their crew on scope of practice and recognizing eating disorders in fitness spaces. And so scope of practice is one of the pillars. So I got to go and meet everyone and just chat about that. And it was so nice to meet this group of professionals. I felt relief and hope that I wasn't alone in trying to make exercise more accessible and enjoyable for others. So I just speak highly of like what they stand for, and personally. And I'm just really impressed by their position and passion around creating a new vision for what fitness spaces can be like. So I'm going to explain a little bit about each of their 8 pillars and how I reference them in my work. And as I said, I feel it's a really nice way to break down some of the examples on how you can implement joy and inclusivity into movement spaces, which I think, kind of pairs really well with the eating disorder recovery mindset that we want to see in our clients. All right, so pillar 1 is accessibility. And it states, Our spaces are physically accessible and our practices are for all bodies. We consider your financial, communication, learning, safety, and other access related barriers to fitness. And I love this. I really think just the takeaway of all bodies and abilities are welcome. And it's not a one size fits all approach. If you see a body positive fitness alliance gym or space or group, you're really going to know that like it's individualized. They have different levels of offering. It's flexible, it's creative, there's different entry points, and it's just not one size fits all. And so I really take it seriously to also do that in our gym at McCallum. So pillar 2, approachability. It states, our attitudes are positive, realistic, and predictable. Our processes are transparent. We acknowledge our own privilege is a barrier between ourselves and those we serve. So again, just all are welcome, and really helping people feel comfortable and not intimidated. I don't know how many times, I mean, I've had the privilege in my life to be a pretty traditionally athletic person, just being involved in sport most of my childhood and into my college years. But the spaces that I've gone into, or I've had friends and family members go into, and just like feel that like intimidation factor, despite like my knowledge base around like strength training, I still don't even enjoy going to a traditional gym and like going over to like the weight stack and working out and in that way, because I just feel like there's this like intimidation factor. So the approachability piece, especially as a fitness professional, I really want to help people feel, you know, they can come as they are. All questions are important. Not playing favorites. I think that's one thing I was talking about with one of my clients yesterday. He was saying that in every gym space, he's always felt like he's less than or he doesn't belong, and that people are just judging him right away as soon as he comes into the door based on like being in a larger body and have taken, you know, many years off of any sort of movement due to his eating disorder. And he was like, I always feel like there are like favorites in classes or favorites at the gym. And I just think if you're looking at things out of a lens of approachability, like there are no favorites, there's no assumptions. You're showing different movements and options and modifications and not like singling anyone out. So that's just something that I hold close to my heart as a trainer, just to like really be approachable for people. And a reminder that I often say is, you know, during sessions is just meet yourself where you're at today. Like this keeps things present and focused on like really listening to body cues and like responding appropriately. Enjoyment, another word for joyful. Okay, so pillar 3 is enjoyment. We provide fun moments and experiences to help you associate challenging physical work with happiness and success. And I think something I love about this is, you know, I want to make people feel comfortable and break down barriers. Part of the reason why when we were trying to test out the sound earlier, I was like, oh, I'm going to do like a little goofy dance. Like I have no rhythm at all in our at all. But in our fitness space, just to like kind of be accessible and like kind of bring that like level or spirit of enjoyment, like I'll make people feel comfortable by just like dancing in a goofy way to make other people feel like oh, all right, this is a safe space to do that. Other ways I like to weave enjoyment in would be, again, those like I Spy adventures outside, scavenger hunts, obstacle courses, partner workouts. I like to like add in like funny faces or funny sounds or funny words, just to like break down some of that traditional, like you go in, you do X number of reps and sets and you leave, but like really being able to like tap into some of the other parts of like what could really be fun. And then helping keep sport or movement a sacred place for people. So like my job would be to be really protective of that relationship for them so that they can enjoy and just not let the eating disorder dictate their workout. All right, pillar 4, community. So we create conditions for meaningful connections between individuals undergoing similar experiences. So we are leaders by example, and we protect our community's values. I think specifically just with I'm lucky enough to work in an eating disorder treatment center, which naturally just has a community of individuals who are working towards similar goals and are, undergoing similar experiences. So it's really important that I create a separate sub community within our gym space to like really make sure that like people feel welcome and supported, and can talk about like struggles openly and their triumphs openly, and they can come as they are and like cry and laugh and have moments where that healing really is encouraged, and a space for them to do that. So I think again, luckily I have a community of people who I can kind of create that sub community for them, just in the safe and supportive space of our gym. And for that, like I think just encouraging discussion before, during, after groups, or even if it's individual sessions. I think like being able to connect people with each other, or like bring today I brought out 2 people on like a walk run, and I drove behind them and went to the park and allowed them to kind of check in with me at the park bench in between, and like just creating that community of like they both want to they're both of the people who went had the shared goal of being able to run with someone else, socialize, be able to slow down for someone else and for themselves, and to just connect in that way again. And I think it was really awesome to see them be able to do that. And then the discussion that was generated after their experience, and then them sharing with a broader community like what that experience was for them, for other people to learn just from their experience together. And just another thing to note, it's important to me to create space and remind my patients that they have choices and they are able to explore things individually or as a community, and that on any given day they can focus on like where they want to be going rather than, or where they are going, rather than beating themselves down about like where they feel like they need to be or where they should be or where they used to be, in quotes. Because I think just creating that space to be able to have choices and talk about all of those things is really important in our treatment setting. All right, scope of practice. So again, I feel really privileged to be able to have talked on this topic, and I know for a fact this is a full talk on itself, and something that I'm passionate about in sharing with other fitness professionals. But pillar 5, scope of practice, I think is so important. And it states, we acknowledge our professional and personal limitations and do not prevent you from seeking a higher level of care for conditions outside our scopes of practice. We implement evidence-based practices and follow guidelines from major professional organizations. And again, something that I think is so important for everyone and every role in general, like in any setting, of really being able to learn how to like stay in your lane and like knowing your role on a team and being able to really let that role shine and have a seat at the table where you're able to really talk openly with expertise around like what you know and your knowledge base and the things that you're passionate about, but also knowing where like your limitations are and where you should be seeking support from other professionals, other providers, and kind of stopping at those natural boundaries of your limitations and consulting with others. And this is an important thing, again, like just in educating specifically other coaches and fitness professionals. One, learning how to detect and refer for eating disorders, but also that, yes, there are many fitness related or exercise or coaching or movement related certifications out there, but by no means does, and let me kind of backtrack. Some will say like, oh, this is like a nutrition certification and like learn how to better support your clients. And so I find it really important just to note that like as a fitness professional, especially one that works in an eating disorder treatment setting, that like you should not give nutrition related information. Like you should always refer to the dietitian. And same thing with therapeutic support. Like yes, things come up in my sessions, but it's really important for me not to play a role of someone's therapist or give like therapeutic advice. It's important for me to say, okay, that's something that I think is really important and valuable to bring up with your therapist or your psychiatrist or your dietitian. And then again, like being able to bridge that gap of communication with the rest of the treatment team. But I think this is a little bit where in traditional fitness settings and diet culture, I feel like there is such a blurry line between fitness and nutrition. And I want to make sure that we can detach those things. All right, moving on to pillar 6, which is full health. Full health states that we ensure your experiences are safe and enhance your overall quality of life. We do not intimidate or shame, rather appropriately challenge you with consideration for your mental, emotional, and physical health. And I think this truly just goes without saying, like working with the whole person, supporting all parts of health. In my role, that may kind of include or does include really discussing the importance of the many factors of someone's sport performance if they're an athlete, including rest or recovery, sleep, etc., like relationships and balance and life outside of their training. And then other reminders may be, really encouraging my patients to hydrate and take breaks when needed, and water and stretching breaks are welcome at any time. I think a lot of times those messages are really difficult to, I guess, it's difficult to kind of debunk, because a lot of times people will be told over the years, whether it's in sports settings or gym class or just going and seeing a traditional fitness trainer and they're like, well, you can't take breaks, or you have to push through, or you can't take water, and then all the other kind of damaging messages that I won't even share that kind of come with that. So then encouraging someone to like, yeah, you could take breaks and stretch and please hydrate, and all of this is really needed and so important, is often difficult. But I think once people have been able to embrace those things, they're like, wow, I feel a lot better. I feel like I can do this. And so I think that's a specific to a fitness professional in this space. Like really focusing on full health is like really focusing on full health. And just reminding people like you are more than your ranking, your accomplishments, your body shape, size, composition, and the outcome of say like a competition or yesterday's training session. I feel like in staying with scope of practice, like a fitness professional should be talking about those things. Like you are more than this workout. And helping them treat themselves with compassion and free of judgment. All right, pillar 7, body positivity. So we do not assume your ability based on what we do or do not know about you. We create and hold space for you to exercise autonomy over your body and relationship and your experience. And again, I feel like I sometimes take the body positivity and the approachability and not making assumptions. I kind of like mesh them together. But I love this. I feel like not assuming an individual's ability and creating space for someone to exercise in their own way. Again, by not having favorites, showing those different movements, options, modifications, and not singling anyone out. And not creating that hierarchy of like, this person is better than this other person, or their ability is better than this. Within the space, I think it just keeps it safe and supportive. And again, just like reminding people, like, meet yourself where you're at today. Like this really keeps things present and focused on really listening to their body cues and like responding appropriately. So like I said, I kind of mix that with approachability, but I think that they're meant to kind of overlap. All right, and then pillar 8 is growth, and this is the last pillar. So growth states that we prioritize growing as professionals to better serve you. We regularly self-evaluate our practices and their alignment with the 8 pillars. Again, something I'm really passionate about, in general as a professional and a person, I always want to be able to be growth minded. So continuing to be a student and learning from my mistakes or limitations and just being able to like make each each day and each lesson that I'm learning something that I can grow from. And I think I grow a lot from even just working with patients and colleagues. And it's important for me to always remain curious and open-minded to shifting and progressing to others' unique needs. And I also think, hearing my clients, my colleagues, and responding in a timely manner to concerns or needs is really important. I think as someone who's been in kind of the athletic world for quite some time, like unfortunately, and this goes for probably every sector in the world, but I mean, sometimes we get stuck in our ways and we're like, nope, this is what's always worked. And I think just being really curious and open-minded and like being able to shift and include, or having inclusivity to be like a marker of like how one continues to grow and learn from other people and others' experiences is really important. All right, so moving on from the pillars, again, I feel like each one of those could be a talk in itself. So I'm happy at any point to talk about this at the end, but um, I've wanted to kind of share briefly just how some of these pillars have impacted my work, but then also share some messages from the patients on joyful movement and share some of the like literal messaging that they've worked on in our gym space to really combat diet culture and make their space, like I provide this space and McCallum provides the space, but then like really creating the workout space as something that's theirs and that they feel comfortable being in and it's safe and supportive. So I with well, I'll just show you in pictures. So some of the things that they've said is, you know, joyful movement has been really helpful in my recovery, like being able to learn how to do something new, or learning a new way to approach movement and, you know, unlearn or detach from the eating disorder messages or diet culture's messages and experiences. So one of the things I had mentioned earlier, like joyful movement really involves variety and flexibility and spontaneity. And so I just love this sign of spice things up with the, the little hot pepper and, you know, adding some variety. And then, of course, find your joy. And this is, these are just snapshots from our gym. So these little signs are kind of posted all around. And I don't know if you can read it. I don't know if like you're on a large computer or phone or whatever, but on the rowing machine, it says, listen to your body. And then it says, there is no time limit on growth with the little garden. So I love that. And I think that in general, it's just so helpful to realize like we all flourish in our own ways at our own time. And I think the same goes with when you're including movement into your life and your recovery. And then another picture here on the rowing machine is I cover up a lot of the numbers. This specifically, like sometimes we'll just push the whole top down. So you don't have to see the computer screen at all. This one specifically will just like kind of keep people's mind on just like the one number for stroke rate, but kind of covering all of the other things so they can really just listen to their body, tune into it, and not focus on like pace, time, like all the other things that kind of come with fitness tracking and exercise equipment. And then this one here is our elliptical. And so I actually put this orange folder on the treadmill when I first started like 6 years ago at McCallum. And people have just continued to write messages on it throughout their time there. I think the first one was run because you love your body, not because you hate it. And strength comes from within. You are beautiful. And then people just have continued to really add to the artwork and to the messaging, which is really cool. So it's been going strong and it has not been laminated. So it makes me happy that I still have this folder. And then very random side note, there's a little elephant and piggy, Gerald and Piggy from the Mo Willems books. And that's a whole other story. But we like to, they're kind of the mascots of our gym, specifically around the book Waiting is Not Easy. So if you see them randomly scattered throughout the pictures, there's a story behind it. Love this one again. Don't numb the signals your body is sending you. Let the messages your body is sending sink in. So again, big part of joyful movement is listening to our body and allowing our bodies to be our guide, and not the numbers that are on the screen behind it. Again, just covering up the computer screen and everything on the bike. This is the treadmill, the other side of the folder, and then run because you love your body, not because you hate it. And have that little sleeve there because people will sometimes like create their own messages and like be able to put it in before they get onto the workout equipment, just so that it's more individualized to them. And just another one, do the exercise that you love to do. And this is just a little, I love this. Someone had painted this for me, but one of my favorite quotes is, not all strength is built in the gym. And a big part of the messages and the philosophy that I really try and present and share with my patients is strength is really not all built in the gym. And like, you're doing such important work here, therapeutically and nutritionally, and you are like, it's not all going to just transfer over into like your athletic abilities or the way that you move your body. Like, let's really focus on the fact that like strength comes from within, and it comes from all of these other parts of like the full health model. And it's just nice that, you know, I think people really are kind of tapping into that in our space. And ours, I didn't take a picture of like the whole entire gym or anything like that, but one thing that I think is important in keeping things joyful is we don't have any mirrors, and that's by design. Because again, I really want people to be focused on the experience and the connection and the community and how their body feels, and really taking the focus off of what it looks like and how their, you know, form looks in a mirror. So by design, we don't have any mirrors in our gym. So with that, I'm just going to wrap up the webinar presentation part of the talk, and really be available to be able to answer any questions or to open up a discussion. But my contact information is here. I also added Kelly, our amazing connector. She's so easy to get in touch with, and I'm sure she'll share her contact information beyond her email if needed in the chat. But if you have any questions about admissions or just questions in general about McCallum Place, like, feel free to reach out to either of us. I'm happy to answer questions specific to the joyful movement piece of our program. If you are a fitness professional, or if you have someone in your life that has struggled with this and you have like specific questions, like, please just feel free to reach out via email. And I'll also be sharing some, well, obviously the presentation, but some added resources I'll give to Lynn and Anid, so that they can send them out as well if you wanted additional resources just on joyful movement and how to include other people in this whole process. So sorry, I thought I went over to this one. Here it is. So I'm going to pass things back off to Lynn so she can share a bit about the Joyful Movement fundraiser that we're teaming up on, and turn my camera back on here for a sec. There we are. Can you see me okay?
Yeah. Hey, Amanda.
Hi.
Yeah, that was so great. Gosh, I took so many notes, and so much of what you said resonated and just felt very supportive and wonderful. So I hope that other listeners are coming away from your presentation with that as well. Yeah, so we do have some questions coming in, and please continue to type in your questions as you're reflecting on what Amanda has just shared with us. And, you know, feel free in the chat to like give us some examples of your own joyful movement and what you do to joyfully move. But first, Amanda, I wonder if we could take a couple minutes because building this idea around a joyful movement fundraiser was an interesting journey, right? Because we had this idea of doing a this board member came to us with this idea of doing some sort of movement related fundraiser that kind of celebrates movement and was very much in line with the webinar that you were thinking of giving. And so can you tell me a little bit about, with your background, why you decided to support this event and help shape it and just really be a wonderful partner in developing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just the name of it, Joyful Movement Fundraiser, like really excited me and also gave me pause knowing that, movement in general, exercise, fitness, however you want to name it in the eating disorder field has been really confusing at times. And when you guys approached it, I was like, oh my gosh, they're coming from a place of true like joy, and they just want to be able to kind of reshape that vision or that philosophy around movement in this space. So it gave me pause, and also you were also open to like, hey, how do we create this? How do we create this fundraiser and have it be inclusive of everyone on their movement journey, whether that means that they're not moving right now and they're working with their treatment teams to work on more like stillness and meditation related movement. And then how do we like help people celebrate their bodies detached from the eating disorder or their experience. So I was just really excited to see something like this with such intention and thoughtfulness to really make sure that it is safe and supportive for our community. So I'm in full support. I'm really excited to get some of our patients and staff members involved and myself and family members, because I really think that there's so many different ways you can kind of approach it, and it wasn't a one size fits all, like everyone has to do this. Like it was very open-ended and recovery focused. So I enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah, and we definitely spell out that like one way of moving is in your mind. And if mindfulness or meditation is what you want to work on, then you can set a goal around doing that for this fundraiser. So there's a variety of ways to get involved, and there's lots more details at the registration link. And just Amanda, thank you for being involved with us and really helping us shape this with the lens of the BPFA pillars in mind. I really think you did a great job helping us think through that and make sure, and of course we're open to feedback from the community if in any way um, we can be even more inclusive about this joyful movement concept. We would love to be but I do think joyful movement is just such it's such a universally positive phrase, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We actually have a question kind of related to that. How would you go about introducing joyful movement with a client and a larger body who is fearful of movement, not only due to a strong association of movement as a form of weight loss, as you discussed, but also due to experiencing pain and great discomfort when moving?
Yeah. Wow, that's such a good question and so important. So I'm going to give a little bit of an example around one of the people that I referenced in the talk earlier, but I think again, just being really approachable, being able to meet that patient where they are and hear about their experiences of the pain that they're experiencing, what messaging that they've gotten over time, just around like why or how they need to move their body, and really hear them and hear kind of what they're interested in, what they've always wanted to try, but felt like maybe because they were experiencing pain or in a larger body in certain spaces, they were really unable to access that support and that guidance around it just due to people's assumptions. So I just like to approach things with everyone, regardless of body size and ability, of just like, who are you? I want to know who you are. I want you to know who I am. And I want to be able to kind of weave things in for you slowly that like you really want to be doing and that are attached to goals. So that might, I mean, that's going to be different for everyone. I think giving an example would be, um, I've had people really scared to even step into a gym for all the things that kind of come up with them or for them. So I might meet them in community space or in someone else's office, or if, you know, the weather permits, we'll go outside and really be able to like have a non-active discussion prior to anything that we do physically, to really get to know them and answer questions with their anticipated challenges. So if someone's like, I don't feel comfortable in the gym, or every time I go into the gym I have a panic attack, or every time I do X, Y, and Z movement I feel pain, I want to know that before we even start moving. And then just like creating an individualized plan for them from that. So I think one of the things that, sorry, I'm kind of rambling here, but one of the things that we tried yesterday was doing a lot of functional movement. So instead of being like, every time I've done squats in the past, like it's been really painful because of certain things that, you know, feel uncomfortable, whether it's like body awareness or like pain from certain joints. And so I created a whole like activities of daily living workout where it was like more like standing up, picking things, you know, off the ground, sitting down, things that you would be doing, you know, kind of naturally. And it felt way more accessible and approachable. And then they were like, this is really fun. Like, had I done this anywhere else, someone would have just said like, all right, do X number of squats and then go do this. But it was like more involved in like what they wanted to be doing. So that's a very rambly answer. So hopefully it answered your question, but I'm happy to elaborate more if
Yeah,
needed.
that's great. Yeah, that intuitive piece. We talk about intuitive eating, but I think we definitely can apply that to movement as well. You know, listening to the body cues about what feels possible today versus tomorrow. Um, so yeah, I think that's really, you had lots of great nuggets in there, Amanda. Thank you.
Oh,
Let's
thanks.
let's move to the flip side then. Someone who is in recovery, like an athlete who is in
Yeah.
recovery and actively competed as a collegiate athlete, and kind of how do you help them find joyful movement and that's not so competitive? How do you help them
Yeah.
embrace non-competitive joyful movement?
Yeah. So there's so many things I could say about this. So I'm going to try and keep it concise, but obviously happy to elaborate. I think that there's a difference between like detrimental competition and like beneficial, like thrilling competition.
Mm,
And I think that a big part of like working with an athlete who has competed and or is like wanting to return to competition, it's important for me to be able to, one, help them recognize the differences between like, is this level of competition or this competitive mindset helpful for you? Is it helping you reach what you want to reach? Are you enjoying yourself? Is this something that you're passionate about? And if not, like, what's getting in the way. So maybe maybe factors of like detrimental competition is like competing with people at all costs, not listening to your body, not having fun with it, like being in that like perfectionistic mindset where like if you make a mistake, you can't learn from it. It's not growth minded. Or like the flip side would be, I really love competition because I love the thrill of the sport and I love my teammates and I really enjoy being able to like master my craft. It's something that I really want to be doing, and it affords me to have this experience with my body that I enjoy kind of competing in this way, or I enjoy being a part of this team, or let's say it's a runner. Like I really enjoy running. I didn't enjoy running in my eating disorder. And so like trying to decouple like, well, what was the competitive mindset in the eating disorder and what is like the beneficial part of being involved in sport and the things that you can learn from that. So I think that kind of speaks to the competitive side of things. And I want to, I guess, share a little bit about like helping them regain their passion. Because I think that has to be there ultimately first before competition really can be there. So I think like really being able to discuss like, okay, do you like doing this? What are the things you enjoy doing? And if you don't enjoy it, like, is there like a 80-20 split of like, I really enjoy this, but like, I don't enjoy getting up early and like training in the cold. Like that's always the experience I give, or example I give. Like I played soccer and lacrosse and I loved like the team. I loved the physicality of it. I loved the creativity I could give on the field. And like, I think I'm generally a pretty calm, like reserved person. And yet like this other side of me that was more like aggressive and excited and like team oriented, like really came out during sport. And it's like I enjoyed that, but I did not like getting up at 5 a.m. and going for runs. Like I don't like that. I liked the like creativity around it. So it's like, how much do you really enjoy this, and is it something you want to pursue? And if it is, then like let's tap into those other pieces of the competitive mindset that can be beneficial and not detrimental.
Yeah, definitely. It's like we talk about an eating disorder recovery, like using some of the personality tendencies to like do good things and
Yeah,
of
yeah,
destructive eating disorder behaviors.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
that's, yeah. Now, what about someone this is a really interesting question, whose
Okay.
increased activity leads to an increase in complacency towards unhealthy eating behaviors?
Can
Or
you,
let me read this.
yeah,
What is your advice to someone whose increased activity leads to an increase in complacency eating towards unhealthy food choices, cheap meals, and excessive portions, and therefore that less movement actually encourages less temptation for junk food?
that's a tough question. And it might be my pregnancy brain, but I'm not like quite understanding like what would be helpful on my end from that. So if would the person be able to clarify a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can move on to or let's see if
Because I think there's something there that I think I can speak to, but I just want to ensure that I'm kind of like, is this person in the example like actively participating in like their eating disorder or like their patterns, because if that would be the case, I would want to ensure that, like, you know, that state of energy balance is there, that their recovery focused mindset is there before even like incorporating any joyful movement.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the other parts to that question also, I would have to like consult with like a dietitian around. So I wouldn't want to speak to the like junk food side of
Yeah.
things. I like kind of take a all foods fit approach. So I don't really want to like speak to the wrong thing, essentially.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And likewise at ANID, we tend to think of all foods as fine and don't attach good or bad to them. So how about any ideas off the top of your head for adult clients starting to incorporate joyful movement? Any adult age appropriate joyful movement ideas besides walking, of course, and scavenger hunt was great. But any other ideas that could appeal to adults that you've had good success with?
I might be a kid at heart, but I think like I also kind of take the approach of like all foods fit and all movement fits. Like I don't think that there's like one thing that's specifically like disordered and one thing that's like helpful and healthful and joyful, but I think more like where someone's mindset is around it, like a 5 minute yoga practice can be really detrimental to someone if they're in the wrong mindset, where someone might be able to like train for like a distance run and be in a really helpful, joyful mindset. So in terms of adult, I really think it's just asking them how they enjoy moving their body. Like do they want to do something individualized? Do they want to do it with a friend or take a class? I think there's some really great classes at like, you know, a local YMCA or swimming or I always like to get out in nature as much as possible. So like hiking or trying new things like kayaking, biking, stand-up paddleboard, tennis. I feel like I'm terrible at tennis and I like am trying to learn because I want to play with my husband, and I feel like you can do that everywhere you go. And
Right.
so I guess like the young person in me is like, oh, tennis is like an adult sport that you can like play into your golden years. But I think you can do that with anything. Like if you enjoy it and your muscles and bones and brain can all kind of um, all get behind whatever activity it is that you want to do. Like I think there are people who do things into their golden years. So I would ask your client like what excites you or what interests you, and just ease in. And something that easing in can mean, yeah, walking or scavenger hunts, but it could also mean like, hey, maybe you bike for 5 minutes and not go for like a long bike ride. Like, why don't you bike around town with a friend and like go meet for coffee or something? Or yeah, I mean, I have lots of ideas if that specific person wants to ask kind of offline, like if they wanted to consult. But I'm of the opinion that like kind of anything goes as long as it's safe and the intentions in the right place, and that they're actually interested in it.
Yeah. 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 Very good. Let's talk about another population. And this person is curious if you or you've seen anyone adapt the BPFA pillars to encourage male identifying folks to do joyful movement. This person says, I have difficulty getting most male identifying folks on board because they think it's girly. Oh, so the idea of joyful movement is girly, right?
Oh yeah. um hmm. I kind of, like I said, I work with a lot of identifying males. And I kind of just take the same approach, and I like name the goofiness, or I'll name the, like, yeah, I know this sounds, joyful movement, like it sounds whatever, this person is thinking their client will think, but like, do you enjoy playing, I don't know, like soccer? If you do, what do you enjoy about it? And like tapping into whatever it is that the person who asked the question is like trying to have the male kind of take away from it. But I think I don't know if it's necessarily girly, but goofy.
Yeah.
Like I think just like taking your personality and putting it into whatever you're trying to, like, whatever message you're trying to have the identifying male receive. But I totally get that, and I kind of just like own it. I'm like, yeah. But I think anything can be joyful. Like if you could train for something that they're really interested in a joyful way, or you can do it in a way that's like completely not fun. So I think, yeah, it really depends on just kind of mindset around it.
Yeah. And it could also go back to like how to frame it, and the way you described having an unbalanced approach
Mhm.
to exercise or movement. And there was a really good question. Is there a visual guide to walk clients through to help them understand that their exercise is unbalanced? Um,
I can share that with you.
oh, okay,
Just
great.
share it with everyone. Yeah. That was one of the things at the end. I was like, oh, I can just like send this to you. So yeah, I have a nice visual of that.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, because I imagine, I mean, I'm sure you've had those experiences, Amanda. Maybe you could just touch on one or two off the top of your head of helping someone shift that mindset in their head away from unbalanced to more balanced. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, if you want to walk us through like one of
Yeah.
the journeys that you remember.
Yeah, so I have the visual that I will share, the document that I'll share. I write out like balance versus unbalanced exercise kind of side by side. And a lot of times, I mean, every time that I meet with someone before I start working with them is having that non-active like consultation, and I'll hand that to them and say, hey, like on either side, like what have you experienced with your relationship with exercise? And a lot of times, like we all have had like balanced and unbalanced, tendencies in life. And so it's like helpful for them to be like, oh, well, I do this and this on the unbalanced side, but like these things I also am still including on the balance side, and like trying to create a relationship with that person on like, well, how do we shift the unbalanced tendencies to more of the balanced? So I think an example of that would be so working out in an unbalanced mindset, you might really focus on like numbers, reps, sets, like as defining like what a good workout would be. And I mean, I see that all the time. And then kind of shifting toward the balance end of things, it's like, well, okay, yes, there's probably going to come a time if you're a competing athlete that like those things are going to matter. And until those things, we're faced with those things, how can we include more safety and socialization? And I don't know, did that just cut us off or?
No, I don't think so. I think we're still.
Okay. So like, how do we tune into those body cues and like really build that foundation for you to be in a balanced headspace and energy balance space where you can return to that sport and be able to focus on those numbers and not have them wholly define you. And so I think like there's a continuum on all of this, and depending on the individual, I think just like having that visual of like, well, what are some of the traits of unbalance and what are the traits of balance and joyful, and like how can I shift some things over? And I have lots of examples, but I know that we're kind of like running out of time, and I'm happy to share individually if this person wants to reach out.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And so, and speaking of numbers, maybe we might have time for one more after this,
Yeah.
but let's also talk about this question. If someone is tracking steps, calories, movement, etc., on things like an Apple Watch, what are your thoughts on asking them to stop versus having them share the information with the treatment team to process it during recovery?
I think it depends on the level of care.
Okay.
I also think it depends on what would be helpful for that information. So like I work in residential through outpatient. So like in residential and PHP, we're not going to have someone tracking those numbers, or they're going to turn in their Apple Watch. They're going to turn in their Garmin. If say again, like I have a collegiate runner who is going to need to eventually track their pace or time, I would potentially have them with their treatment team and me involved, like have a process of like, okay, we're going to like give you this back after we build that foundation of like not worrying about the numbers, and have you share that information with the treatment team so that we know what you're doing, and how to help you like get to the next step, and feel comfortable if you're going into a setting where people are going to be tracking how fast you're going, because if you go that fast then you win the race or something. So like I think that everything has to be kind of individualized with that. Outpatient, I think that it's variable, and I think each treatment provider would potentially talk to the other treatment team members and see like, is this helpful for us to track? Is it not helpful for us to track? I like to take the approach of like, if someone is kind of tracking all of those things that you mentioned, are they like fully recovery focused, and should they be moving joyfully or not? Or is there more to the picture that needs to be addressed prior? So I would just kind of have a conversation as a full treatment team. Like, are these numbers going to be helpful or not? I usually think not, initially, because I think if you're trying to do anything joyfully, I don't want to like read a book and like count the number of words and pages that I'm reading. Like I just want to like dive into the book, you know? And
right.
So I think it's hard to kind of focus on the joy if like you're evaluating yourself like in the moment. So with the treatment team's kind of consultation, like deciding, is this going to be helpful or not for this person at this stage? I hope that answers.
It's such a great answer. It's so brilliant. Yeah. And I think you bring up such a good point of just questioning the need to know these numbers, much like we're beginning to understand that being weighed at the doctor's office is not necessary, and we are allowed to decline that. It's not necessary for us to know, perhaps. And so there's just lots of opportunities for everyone to just be more open and communicative about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do one last scenario. I feel like we've been presenting questions to you, Amanda, of like excuses for not doing joyful movement or not buying into it. And in every case, they're just, it does seem like it truly is such an antidote to diet culture, like you were saying in your presentation title, that the more we can adopt the mindset of a kid, basically, and a kid's approach, as you and I both as new mothers experience, kids' approach to movement is truly just joyful and about nothing else but finding joy in how their bodies can move.
Yeah.
So on that, we'll close with this last question.
Yeah.
How would you encourage joyful movement for individuals who are always complaining about time constraints for exercise?
I think that joyful movement in general can happen, and it doesn't have to happen on a certain timeline or within like a certain time frame. So like, okay, so perfect example is right now I'm a working mother, I'm pregnant, and I'm like literally selling our house and moving. And so I don't have much time to just like carve out for, movement. But I love being able to like take an air break with a colleague and like go outside for a few minutes and just like connect with nature and walk around and or like do some stretching in between sessions, or get home and be like, okay, we're gonna get our dinner ready, and while it's cooking, we're gonna go outside and like play with the dog, or we're gonna like have a catch, or whatever it may be. Like I think things can happen in small increments of time, so it doesn't necessarily have to be this long thing. Or like, okay, full disclosure, before I did this talk, I put on some like music and I was like dancing in my kitchen, and then I like came and did this. So like, okay, that was like 3 minutes, but it was really fun, and it like got my energy like where it needed to be for, transitioning from just being in staffing and in sessions to like, hey, I'm going to talk about this on a computer where no one can see me. And so I think it can happen in lots of different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very flexible. There are no rules really
No
for
rules
joyful movement,
except for it to be joyful and, you know,
and that's it. Pretty
fueled
much.
by energy balance and nourishing your soul.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to do. And because yeah, it's it's anything. It's anything really. So Amanda, thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for teaching us about the BPFA pillars and things that messages from your clients. That was so wonderful to see, and your perspective and lens is just really, it's really very refreshing and really doing a great service to our community. So thank you.
And I feel the same about Anid. So I'm really happy that we got the chance to team up on this, and look forward to the fundraiser and seeing how we can continue to collaborate in that way.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So, all right, everyone. Well, thank you for all these thank yous coming in. And yes, as a reminder, CE credits will be available once you complete the evaluation that will go out either later today or tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. We also will send out the recording for this webinar along with the slides and maybe that other handout that we were talking about earlier. So I will go ahead and stop the recording. So Amanda, thank you so much for being here today, and we'll be in touch soon later this fall for another Anid webinar.